Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Pod Save Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about Season 5 of the Craft Chocolate Challenge. And my guest today is the organizer of the Craft Chocolate Challenge, Dustin Cornett. But before we get there, what I'd like to do is just let everybody know that this episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, is supported by the members of the Chocolate Life. And at the end, we'll go over how you can go and support the Chocolate Life. And also to point out that no matter where you might be watching today, no matter what platform, whether it's YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, you can go into the live chat, you can go into the comments, you can let us know where in the world you're connecting from, and then you can also ask questions. So if you got a question about the challenge that you'd like to ask of Dustin, you can go ahead and do that, or me, right? You can go ahead and do that. With that, let's bring Dustin up onto the stage and say, hey, Dustin, hey, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
You know, it's always a pleasure to have you. And what I want to do, if I can, is just take people back to the beginning before we talk about Season 5 of the Craft Chocolate Challenge. Let's go talk about what led up to Season 1 of the Craft Chocolate Challenge. Why does the challenge exist, and why is it a challenge, not an awards or a competition? Because I don't know that we've actually talked about that little linguistic nuance before.
Yeah, so basically it came out of necessity. I feel I was a young chocolate maker and in an area where I wasn't around others to get in, like network and get information, wasn't able to travel, things like that. But I wanted to improve my craft. So entered some contests and so forth. All I got was kind of just some results of things, but not a lot of feedback, or really any feedback to know why it was good or why it wasn't good, or really anything to be able to change what I was doing to improve. So I thought, with a kind of a young industry like we have in the craft chocolate industry, and maybe something like that would be needed. So I decided to create it. If it doesn't exist and I want it, I will create it. So that's what I did. And I created it in a way that would be beneficial to smaller makers. So there's no entry fee. We get everything through like sponsorships or donations to pay for everything, or I end up paying for it. But I don't want anything to be cost prohibitive. This is about improving ourselves, improving our chocolate, which will make our customers happy, which will make the market bigger, and so forth. So that's kind of how it started. Was just I felt like something like that needed to exist. And I know there was maybe some schools or classes or some online things that you could possibly take at that time. But again, that's a big commitment. This is not. It's basically send your bars, and I will organize a panel of judges to give you thorough feedback, and we make a little fun competition out of it as well. And that's kind of it.
So it's sort of like you're in rural Kentucky. You don't have easy access, like if you're in the New York City metropolitan area, or you're in San Francisco or Seattle, someplace where there are a lot of other makers, and it doesn't require too much of a travel commitment to get to places, right? This is definitely how do I go about and create an environment where I can learn from others. Now, you're running a bed and breakfast at this point as well?
Yeah,
right? So that's where the Chocolat in name comes from.
Yes.
Right. Is you're running a bed and breakfast, and you do have a retail location, including selling product to people. So, and a young baby as well, as I understand. So there's a lot going on in your life. Had you ever done anything like this before? So you get into it, and it's really a case of, I don't know what I'm getting into, and so I'm not going to let that stop me.
When I was in college and I would go home, I didn't have much to do. And I wanted to do something, but most of the activities were for like children. So I created a softball league, and then it became kind of an annual thing and came kind of big because of just I wanted to do it. So it's like I've had that feeling before, and I've accomplished it, and I'm not scared to try and to start something. So it was a little intimidating, I'm not going to lie, because I didn't really have anybody in the chocolate world that I was connected to when I first started I was reaching out to different people to try to find somebody to interact with me to maybe help me decide on some things. I didn't exactly know what would be the best route to go. So I did approach Paul Picton at Maverick because he was the closest to me in Cincinnati. And he was receptive. And I went up to see him one day and kind of saw his facility and talked to him about certain things like that. But I was basically making myself um, try to interact with people, and not a lot of people actually wrote me back or
Mhm,
did anything. But
mhm.
I had to try, and then I had to start it from nothing. So I had to basically invite people, and I would send messages on Instagram to different chocolate makers and say, "Hey, I think this might be something that you might be interested in. Give it a look." Basically, cold calling just to kind of get the word out there about what it is, because there was really no budget for like marketing and stuff like that. So
So it's not just a question about inviting, it's a question about inventing as well. And before we go, I want to remind, if you're watching this live, you can go into the comments, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook if you have a question about the challenge for Dustin. And I just want to make it very, very clear that we're in the judging phase for the 2026 challenge. They're not accepting any more entries. But you can go to the Craft Chocolate Challenge website. You can sign up and say, hey, I'd like to be kept on the list for knowing more about next year. But Dustin, as we get there, tell me more about inventing. So you said one of the things that you were looking for was a contest that would provide more feedback, right? Um, but from the very beginning, and I should let everybody know that I jumped in season 2 as a judge and as head judge. So the first year, Dustin, for some reason or another, didn't reach out to me and ask me. But I think that's a good thing because it wanted to come from Dustin's perspective, not my perspective. But what are some of the things from the very beginning that you thought were really, really important that would differentiate the Craft Chocolate Challenge from other festivals or
so
other awards or competitions, challenges, whatever you want to call them?
before I answer that, there is, I don't know, it's kind of funny. I guess it's kind of funny. So I was posting things on Well Tempered and things like that. And the first year, there was a university that was interested in kind of helping my business or doing some research, market research. So I approached them about the challenge and things like that. So I could use that information they pulled and be able to give that to entrants of the Craft Chocolate Challenge and share that with them. And I was posting certain things like this on Well Tempered, and I wasn't at the time, like I just had no idea what this data was actually going to be. I wasn't in control, I wasn't their professor. I was just kind of asking this as part of it. And you actually did comment on there, and it was a little intimidating and a little scary, and I didn't know your personality at the time. So I thought, what's that guy talking about? So I kind of stayed away from you. But I thought, as a growing experiment, somebody who maybe might push back on me or like ask me questions and this type of thing, I should not just ignore or run away or have fear or anything like that. I should actually engage. So I decided to just engage with you more about, all right, so this is what I want to do. This is, what would you do? What were your ideas? And,
Mhm.
so forth. So that's the approach kind of I took with it. And I do that a lot with how I do things too. After first initially getting a little angry and just go but then
Right.
I then I process the information and then I
Yeah.
make better decisions. So that's kind of how it happened. Year one was a lot of I should say too is I wanted people to come together because I had an in. So the people I approached mostly to be judges were ones that would commit to coming to Beattyville, and I would lodge them, and then we would kind of work together on some of these things. And I thought that was very important, and as a way of learning this process, because this was all new to me. That's like the guy needing the feedback is the guy creating something, giving feedback. I have a lot of learning I have to do a great job at this. So I
Mhm.
needed I needed to learn by that. So that was year one. And then
So if I can direct the conversation a little bit, one of the things that makes the Craft Chocolate Challenge unique, right, is that you have a limited number of categories, and then you have a limited number of awards per category. So could you explain how you got to that? And then, as I also recall, you do have some guidelines, and I don't know if this was from year one, about the maximum number of entries that any one company can enter, and if there was a distribution about where those entries needed to be. So could you talk about the philosophy of the judging categories? And then what we can do is we can go and, how we got there, and then we can talk about the evolution of that.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I didn't really see this as like a super competition. I'm not going to take over the competitive world of craft chocolate. So it was basically keep it simple and easy to understand, and make it kind of like fun in a way, because we're not trying to judge your chocolate if it reaches like a whatever threshold it's going to win an award. It's dependent on who enters. It's like the Olympics. You might be great, but just so happens, there's somebody that's better. It just, a fluke that someone happens to be better at you at this time. But if you would have been competing 10 years ago, you would have been the number one. So it's basically competing against your peers. And I thought that was fun, and I didn't see that out there so much. So I wanted to do that. So we have the first, second, and third place, and then kept it simple with dark, milk, white, and inclusions. This is the approach I took year one. And then when it came to entries, it was like a lot of unknown how popular it was going to be, or what we could actually do with feedback, and how many can we work on, and how long is it going to take. And I had planned to just do all this in person. So if we had what we have now, that would have been very daunting. It would have been impossible to do. Year one, let's see, we had 33 total entries in year one. And I didn't specify how many you could enter in a certain category, but I did cut it off at 5 per chocolate maker. And somebody loaded up 5 in one category, and I didn't really see that coming. And it made it tricky to do a good job, because when you're looking at the same style of packaging and the kind of the same style of chocolate making, and you're doing 5 of them, you get the fatigue a little bit faster, and what you need to relay to these people is kind of the same thing over and over. So I thought that's redundancy that we don't need. Other contests, they charge entry fees, so they want more people to enter, because that's just it's more of a business. That's not how we work. So going into following years, I had to adjust. You can only enter, I think year 2 was, you can only enter 1 per category, but you can enter every category. And then I think year 3, it ended up being that you can only enter 2 bars, and you can only enter 1 of those bars in a category. And that's where we are now. So
Well, I could tell people as a judge, especially when we're talking about things like packaging and the molds, that you've done reviewing 1 bar, you've done filling out all the judging sheets for 1 bar. And then when you get to the second entry, it's like, see my notes from the other one, because usually the packaging is identical, right? And the mold is identical. And so if you have to do that 5 times, because what you want to do is feedback, it just gets, as you said, not just palate fatigue, but it's like, oh my gosh, I've been there, done it again. And what you end up doing is copying and pasting. Right? Oh, this is identical. So it makes it a real quick challenge. I do want to get a quick shout out, Dustin, to a friend of the challenge, Mike King from Encore Coffee, Kansas City, Encore Coffee and Chocolate from Kansas City, Missouri. We'll talk about Mike and his special status with the challenge very, very soon. But I do want to just sort of interrupt and mention that so this is the homepage for the current season 5 of the Craft Chocolate Challenge. You'll notice, and we'll talk about this Beanstalker partnership a little later because I think it's important. But one of the things that I think is admirable because it's upfront in a nod to transparency, right? Is that what you do is you list all of the entrants in each of the 4 categories. And I do want to point out for people who don't know is that the dark category is plain and flavored. The milk category is plain and flavored. The white chocolate is plain and flavored. And then the inclusions category is dark or milk or white or any other kind of chocolate that you're making, and it has something that modifies the texture of it. It has an ingredient which is specifically there to modify the texture. Was it easy to come up with those 4 categories year one, or did you struggle with that idea?
It was pretty easy coming from where I was at in my relationship with the craft chocolate world, because those were the categories that were familiar to me. I wasn't looking at dark chocolate over 90% or dark chocolate over 80%. Or 2 ingredients, or any alternative milks or anything like that so much. It was just keep it simple, stupid. It's just basic. Let's just keep, this is the main part of this is about feedback, and just keep it easy to understand. And my goal too was I also wanted the categories to be competitive. At the time, I didn't realize that white chocolate, plain and flavored, is maybe not a popular thing that craft chocolate people do. I did it, and my customers tended to like that. But when I'm getting entries, that's always the category that has the least amount of entries. Maybe there's missed opportunity in this. I don't know what to exactly say. In the Midwest, maybe there is definitely missed opportunities for this. But yes, so it was basically just kind of keeping it easy to understand, and then going from there with it.
So let's talk, if we can, next about judging via Beanstalker. Number one, what is Beanstalker? And number 2, I'm a judge, and so I can talk about my experience with Beanstalker. But what is being on the Beanstalker platform to judge enable for the challenge?
So it kind of creates more of a promotional opportunity as well in this collaboration. So year 1, 2, 3, those seasons, I would make forms for every bar, like a PDF form, and I would email it to every judge, and then they would fill out that form and send it back to me. And it gets a little tedious doing that. So I was also looking for other ways to maybe do it digitally, maybe quicker. So that was one thing on my mind. And then Beanstalker's platform is about finding flavors in chocolate and promoting craft chocolate all together, the events, everything going on, and bars. And I thought, this could be interesting if we can create a way. And Steph was really open to the idea of it and worked to find a way where we could input everything we needed to that would be on the forms that I would create using her platform, and spit it out in a PDF form that's even easier to understand than kind of what forms I created were, and also they look better. So that was great. And go ahead.
Yeah, so let me explain what's going on here. So one of the things that's just interesting to know, I'm trying to figure out. So let's go back a page if I can. So this is the season 5 page for the Craft Chocolate Challenge. If you go click on this link, it doesn't take you to the Sweets Escalier website, right? Which is in Japanese and needs to be translated. But if you click on it, what it does is it takes you to the page on the Beanstalker website. And you'll get a whole bunch of information about it, right, about the individual bar. Now, I, as a judge, will go click on the sign in, and because I'm a judge, I will be taken to a special version of the review form, which includes not only what Beanstalker asks about these bars, but also everything that the competition needs, the challenge needs from a judge in order to be able to evaluate the bar, right? And the information that is specific to the challenge is not made publicly available. It's behind the scenes so that Dustin can, and Steph, who organizes this, they're in Australia, which is where this is done, can organize all the information that gets sent to the entrants. So every entrance gets every review from every judge for each bar that's entered. There's no separate process. They just get everything, which is pretty cool. But one thing that this allows is if you're a member of the public, right, and what you'd like to do is you'd like to judge a bar, then you can go and judge a bar, and your comments in the bar are shared with the makers, right? They're not included as a part of the final results. That's for the judges, right? But you can participate as a judge in this process, which is something you and Steph put together last year. Anybody could judge. But tell me a little bit, Dustin, about what you want to do this year that's going to sort of like raise the stakes and raise the ante in terms of inviting the public to be a part of the challenge judging.
Yeah, so I think maybe since season 2 or season 3, I've really wanted to do this unofficial judge thing. And I just couldn't really create traction with it because it was difficult for them to actually do it. I did have some people that went to the website that I was using and downloaded the form and then ordered the chocolate from the people. But not that many did it, but a couple actually did do it. And the last year was the first year using Beanstalker. And with that, we kind of wanted to see how it was going, to what kinks we needed to work out and then things like that. So maybe it wasn't heavily promoted that we were doing it, but it's going to be much easier to do it on her platform. And what she's providing this year is even better because she's going to create like an award for the judge. One of these unofficial judges can actually win chocolate and be shipped to them. I think just US only. But so we'll figure out all those logistics and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But that will be a way to reward the general public for taking part in this unofficial judging activity. And I think that will help it go. And then in the future, we can try to promote more, maybe get some donated chocolate from some of the entrants to give more prizes, and then just
let's not worry so much about the aspect of it. I'm sure that people being able to win chocolate is a great incentive for doing it.
Everybody wants chocolate.
Who doesn't want chocolate, and who doesn't want prize winning chocolate, right? Which is another great thing. But I think that, I first started judging professionally before the first International Chocolate Awards. So I've been doing this quite some time. And I say professionally, not because I'm getting paid to do it, because judges don't get paid to judge at the International Chocolate Awards. But it's always been this relatively small group of people that's got this relatively narrow view about what makes good chocolate. And so being able to invite people, so here's an idea. Maybe what it is that you've got is you've got a first level, second level, or third level accreditation with the International Institute of Cocoa and Chocolate Tasting, right? And what you'd like to do is you'd like to practice, and you'd like to see how your impressions compare with the judges' impressions. So becoming a part of the tasting, the official tasting panel, the Beanstalker community tasting panel around the Craft Chocolate Challenge, presents an opportunity for your own personal development, where you can compare against what other people are doing. So I think it's really, really an interesting opportunity for people to go and do it. Plus, if you wanted to, you can go to any other bar which is on the Beanstalker website, and you can provide your own input to it, right? Which is just a really, really fantastic. And this is, bars from all over the world. And, there is an aggregation and anonymization of what you're talking about. But I think it represents a really, really interesting opportunity, and the idea of becoming sort of like a formal community tasting panel, right? Which, for example, hey, Dustin, you and I talked about this. Maybe what we do is we provide somebody who's going to get a scholarship to one of the winners of this, who can actually come to the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival and participate in it. There are all sorts of interesting ways to be able to create community around this. And I think that that's one of the things about this that's most exciting to me.
It also helps the chocolate maker if somebody is purchasing their bars, and that you're helping a chocolate maker who is trying to better themselves by entering something to get feedback. So I think that's great. So I support that.
Win, win, win for everyone. I also want to do a real quick shout out, is that, again, here is the homepage for season 5 of the Craft Chocolate Challenge, not the homepage of the challenge website, but we're looking at season 5. And number one is you can see all 27 of the entries that are going to be judged in the dark chocolate category. Here are all 10 entries in milk, 6 in white, 20 in inclusions, which is my favorite category for judging, if anybody wants to know. I like that. But for every single entry here, you can click on it and you can go to the Beanstalker page to rate it and review it if you've been able to purchase it. But importantly, if you go down to the bottom of the page, here is a profile of every single one of the judges, right? Now, if you're astute, you might be able to figure out, who one of these judges is, right? But the entrant, right, doesn't necessarily know who is judging their bars, who's providing the reviews. Although we as judge are able to identify ourselves if we want to at any point. I don't know of any other competition which says here are the judges, at least the judges' profiles, on the same page as the entries. Normally have to click and hunt, and you have to figure out what's going on. And I think, as I recall, you've done this since day one.
Yeah. That was important to me. That was very important to me, because the feedback doesn't have as much importance if you don't know who it's coming from. So let's say you look at a judge there that likes mostly 80% dark chocolates, but they're giving you feedback on a white chocolate and they didn't like your white chocolate. And it's like, well, maybe they just don't like white chocolate. Hey, but you have somebody who has more of a sweeter tooth or something like that, that you can maybe tell from the judging panel, and they love it. Then, that's your market. That's your people that you want to promote this bar to. That works. Not everybody's going to like the same thing. So your feedback, it's really important who it's coming from. So if it's blind, it doesn't really help you all that much. But we can't, give you everybody's life story. But some parts that could be relevant, we can, and we want to do that. I give them the opportunity to tell the public who they are themselves if they want to. Some do, some don't. That's great. I believe you do, Clay. So,
I think it's obvious that anybody looking at this will know who I am, but I will not out myself until after I'm done judging. So, I do wait until after I'm done judging to.
I always got follow-up questions from Mike. He always figured out who I was, and I always get a follow-up question. What do you mean?
Right. And it's also important to note that we do have a wide variety. We have a maker, a journalist, an educator, a writer, a reviewer. We have an enthusiast, so a member of the general public who's not necessarily a professional, 2 makers, a sommelier, a store manager, which I think is a really, really great option. But you also notice down here, certified chocolatier. I assume you're talking about the IICCT. And this year we have 1 judge who is a certified in one way or another. So again, props about being as open as you can. Now, one thing, there are a couple of places where I think it's interesting. So one of the challenges I have, and maybe why I was hard with you year one, Dustin, when on when I responded to things on Well Tempered, it's long ago enough that I don't respond, and it would have been in the middle of COVID, I think, or just about then. Is that I'm a data geek. I mean, how the information is organized and presented, that's, a really, really important thing for me. And one of the challenges I have, for example, with other awards, is they don't tell you who entered or how many entrants there were. They'll only give you the people who won, right? And so you don't know what percentage of entrants win awards, right? And you don't know where, so there's all this information that these organizers have that is central to understanding the impact of craft chocolate more generally. And one of the things that I've encouraged with you, and listen, it's your challenge, and you're the ultimate, I'm the decider, right? The bar stops with me. Is that you've been open and receptive to these ideas, not just from me, but from other people I know. Whereas many of these other challenges are not open to hearing, right, criticisms about the way their challenge is organized, or to consider ways to think of ways to improve it that don't come from the internal group. But one of the things that I love is that there's this link at the top to alumni. And so number one, so you have season 1 debut. So this is a list of the companies that entered into season 1, right?
Yes. So, but I didn't, that's the debut. So when they entered the
Right.
other years, I didn't put it there. So I'm not
Gotcha.
showing you who's entered every year, but just when they started, I figured that was the easiest way to not to be repetitive. So yeah.
Right. I think that's really important. But in case anybody wants to know, if you're interested in knowing these are links to the company websites.
Yeah.
So if
So
people
those
want to
would
go
link
through,
to if I could find
right?
something to link to. Some of them, yeah.
Yes. I mean, I understand that problem. So if you want to, here is a list of people. I don't understand why you go to bold all of a sudden, but and you've got the
That's when I
season
got
5
bold.
debut. That's when you got bold. Got it. And then we also have the season 5 debuts. And so what this does, if you're interested in, you just take a quick look, and you can see the evolution of the companies that have entered, which provides some pretty interesting information about it. Now, one of the challenges that you've already addressed when it comes to other competitions is what I think of as category stuffing. There's no limit to the number of bars I can enter into a single category. So if I've got a category and I enter 5 bars, that increases my likelihood that I'm going to win something in that category, right? And what you've done is you've limited it to 1 per category. But there's also this trend that people who win awards in the past tend to win awards in the future, right? They figured out how to, for want of a better term, game the system, work the system in order to get the awards. And so one of the things that you created was something called the Master's Program. So what is the Master's Program all about, Dustin? And, again, how is it different from what other challenges are doing?
First, I do want to say that the judges judge all of the chocolates. So in the other competitions, they don't. But there's a lot in the other competitions, so it would be really hard for one judge to judge them all. I understand that. But for ours, yeah, every judge judges all the ones you see, so it's consistent. I like the consistency part. So what you're talking about with the Masters is, I noticed the trend that you were talking about, and because we don't have the data to understand if it is sending a lot of chocolate in and they're always winning. So you always see the same winners every year. They're always winning. Maybe their chocolate is fantastic and they're just great. I don't know. So I didn't want to see that pattern in mine, because I don't view this as a competition first. It's to give feedback. And if you're always winning, then maybe you don't really need the feedback. And we could utilize that time better for somebody else. So after you've won 3, doesn't have to be consecutive, just 3 in 3 years, we move you on. You become a master. And then as a master, you cannot enter the competition anymore. You could send your bars if you wanted them to be reviewed or ask us questions, things like that. You're not sent to an island or anything, but we stopped the winning there.
So no, we don't stop the winning there. We stop awarding. Okay.
Okay.
But right.
That's what I meant.
Right. But to some extent, and I think that this is something you and I've talked about, is that for the Masters, the purpose of the challenge has been fulfilled in them. We provided feedback, they've won awards. And so people know it's any level of award, gold, silver, or bronze, in any category, in 3 seasons, not consecutive. And when that's done, you are retired. However, if you want to send in a bar to be reviewed by the judging panel, you can send in a bar to be reviewed by the judging panel. It's just not eligible for an award. So really, really quick, pointed out. So the first one, is Tandy the first master?
Yep.
So Tandy Peterson, Embers Chocolate in Phoenix, about 75 miles from where I am. You can see won a bronze in season 1, a silver in season 2, and in season 3, best dark top overall gold in season 3. So you can see this progression.
What a way to go out.
Which is really, really quite fabulous. And she's got a retail store and a restaurant. So if anybody is visiting Phoenix and is a craft chocolate challenge or a craft chocolate lover, Embers is definitely a destination that you want to put on your itinerary. Secondly, Liang Wang of Kesho. And how come? So she won 2 in season 2, and you hadn't created the master's program by season 3. Oh, but it has to be in 3 different years. Gotcha. Okay. So Liang, again, best inclusion silver, top overall bronze. So that's also something interesting. It's an individual bar because you have a meta award, which is best overall, in addition to the individual categories.
And I can do that because all the judges are judging every category. So it's consistent. So I can have a top overall with all the categories considered. Right.
And then Mike King, who was in the conversation earlier, I don't know, Mike, if you're still there, Encore Coffee and Chocolate has won a season 2, 3, and 4. And take a look, best milk bronze. Again, Mike is a coffee roaster, right? So that gives him an edge, I think, in cocoa roasting. But you'll see it's a milk chocolate, a cafe mocha, a vanilla latte, white chocolate. I mean, here, different categories. So I think that's pretty cool. But again, top overall silver in last year's competition. And Mike, if you're still there, I know it's a bittersweet, pun intended, that you've had so many awards and you can no longer compete. But if you can give us a sense, if you want to make a comment and give us some sense of, how valuable the challenge has been for you, definitely get that up, and Dustin and I will have a chance to chat about it. Now, what I want to do.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Yeah.
So for season 5, we have the Master's Watch, right? So now we know who could possibly become a master.
Ooh, who's on the Master's Watch list, Dustin?
So there's 4. There's 4 on the Master's Watch list. There's Sweets Escalier, there's Blue Spruce, there's Thor's, and there's Heritage. So those guys are on the Master's Watch list for season 5. We'll see what happens.
So great. Sweets Escalier from Japan. Mm-hmm. Thor's is from Idaho. Blue Spruce is from Colorado. And
Heritage from the Dominican.
From the Dominican Republic. So we have this wonderful distribution. So let's talk really quickly about distribution before we get into showing some stuff off. But I want to share a little bit of distribution. So one of the things that I did, and again, I'm a data geek, so this is what I do. One of the things I did is I generated a table of stats. And so what I did is I said I was able to go to the page on the Craft Chocolate Challenge where all the official entries are, right? And I was able to go and say, I have an LLM, right, that I use to make it easy. And I could say, okay, tell me how many different countries are entered into the competition this year, right? And we have 11 different countries and with a total of 24. So I can make this a little bigger so it doesn't disappear. So we have 11 countries with 24 total entries. So Dustin, do you think that tariffs and other things might have had an impact on, because I
They
think you told me
absolutely
that there were
did.
I think you told
Yeah.
me there were fewer international entries this year.
That, and then the conversations I had with some makers that were not able to send, or kind of afraid to send. One of them did send. The one from Ireland, the post office said that America does not accept chocolate or something like that from their country, and I couldn't find anything on our end that said that. So she was like, just send it. Who knows where to end up? And it actually got here really quickly. So that, who knows? Who knows? But yeah, things came in. Sometimes they needed tariffs paid. Sometimes they didn't, and it was just there's no consistency at all. It
Mhm.
really affected the international entries this year. Thankfully, we had a lot of
Mhm.
domestic ones come through. I was a little worried there for a while about
Mhm.
how strong the challenge was going to be this year because of those obstacles, but lots of domestic makers entered this year, and it's really
Right.
good to see. And a lot of them I've never had their chocolate before, so very interested in it.
So one of the things that I didn't do, and I need to do that, and I will add this up, and it'll only take me a few minutes to figure this out, is that we have makers representing 15 different states, right? With the most represented state being Utah. So we have 6 entries. That's probably 3 different makers. What I want to do is I want to count the number of unique makers in each state, and add that to this, in this title. But then with what New York being the second most represented state, and internationally we have Ecuador and Canada and Japan being the most represented states, countries, which I think is really cool. But any other surprises here in terms of distribution? Places you weren't expecting from anything like that this year, Dustin?
Um, I'm actually surprised we have that many internationals with all of it. It was just such a struggle,
Mm.
and you never know. So it seems the bars from Japan didn't seem to have any issues. The bars from Canada kind of did. They got stuck in customs and took forever. It's like, it doesn't make any sense at all. Ecuador seemed to be fine. I think there was a tariff that needed to be paid. Like, it's just all random. I'll probably get some random bills from UPS or something in 2 months, or who knows. Like, it doesn't make any sense, and that's just causes issues because nobody wants to send their chocolate somewhere if they don't think it's going to arrive. And a lot of the times to ship internationally, you're talking at least $50, $60 or something like that.
Right, right.
So
Right. And it's important to know that while there is no entry fee, the cost to enter is the cost of the chocolate bar, the manufacturing cost of the bar, plus any cost to ship. Right. That's the hurdle that has to be um, overcome in order to do that. But let's go to someplace else. So Dustin, you and I had a conversation a couple of days ago, and in the last few minutes that we're here today, is that I said I would pick a couple of bars to highlight, and this is just sort of random selection. There are 63 entries, official entries this year, and I'm just picking through some of them. And Dustin, you did some as well, and so I am going to share one, and then I'm going to ask you to share one, right? And
yeah,
we
I
didn't
got
plan
them
this.
all next to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I have them, but they're out of camera reach. I didn't move them, but anyway. So the first one that I wanted to highlight is from a maker that's new to me. It's a company called Indigenous, and let me make this a little bit bigger. So this is a company called Indigenous, and we're going to have problems getting it focused, but this is in a 2-ingredient bar. And it is, to the best of my knowledge, my memory, it's the first bar that's been entered, which is using cocoa from Vanuatu, right? And it's not an origin that most people or many people are familiar with. It's been a while since I've had a Vanuatu bar, and that's one of the reasons why I picked it out. And I also noticed it's the only unflavored plain plain bar in what it is that I chose. So, Dustin, did you have anything like this that jumped out, like a single origin, 2-ingredient from an origin that excites you this year?
Oh, so yeah, there's a lot that excite me. And I want to know how smoky that bar is going to taste. I'm curious about that. So I was thinking about trends. In the past, we've seen a lot of coffee bars. This year, it seems like there's a lot of chili bars. But something really cool, and I think is an opportunity for a lot of us as chocolate makers, is there's a couple protein bars. So you have this one here that is it's actually front and center telling you it's a protein bar. And then you have Thor's that actually, if you look at the ingredients and stuff like that, it also has the whey isolate protein in it too. And I think he said it was about 20 grams or so a bar, which is like great. So
Mhm.
I like to see that. I think that might be something we need to think about in the industry. Maybe we're going that way with certain things. I don't know. I just thought that was cool. And to see the
Well,
trends
if I can jump in here, there's a category we haven't been talking about, which is innovation.
Yeah.
Right, which is sponsored by Cocoa Supply. So just want to give a shout out to Lila and her and the team here in the US, down in Ecuador, in Europe, as well as in Australia. But the innovation category came about because, maybe a bar which markets itself as a protein bar, if you put it into the plain and flavored dark chocolate category, might not rise to the level of something that didn't have that amount of protein. But we as judges get to say, ooh, we thought this was interesting and deserving of consideration, even though we didn't think it deserved either a gold or silver or bronze, right? And to the best of my knowledge, the challenge is the only judging competition in which innovation is explicitly a category. Do you know of another one?
No idea. I know some of these competitions have some separate awards for different things, but I don't know all of them. And so there's there's kind of a lot. You kind of get a lot of awards in some of them. Something we talked about before we got on here too was the difference between this was Thor's bar last year, and that's their packaging this year. So interesting to see the differences. And
so
when I break it down, I'll see if maybe it was from some of our feedback or not.
Yeah, it's interesting for people to know is that even though feedback about packaging is not made public on Beanstalker, right? It is an important aspect of the judging process, right? The judges are specifically asked to provide feedback. And I know that, for example, Kesho updated their packaging based directly on feedback that we provided. So it is an important part of things, and we do recognize that that arc of development for people who enter multiple times. But this is, just so different from the flow wrapped with the tear notch down the side, which I particularly am not a fan of. But to go and really embrace the branding, really embrace the branding is quite an evolution. And I know Christian Becker, who's the founder of it, and we can find out from Christian how much the feedback from the challenge influenced. Now, you mentioned, right, coffee has always been a huge ingredient,
yes,
but so has tea, right? And so this is a bar from a Canadian maker.
That's the one you're holding up. It was blurry, so I'll just hold it for you.
Soba cha.
Yep, soba cha. I'm curious about that one too. My father-in-law makes soba, so kind of curious about it.
Right. So it's a Tanzanian bean, Coco Camilli. Is that the name? So the company is called CHOCOlat. So it's cha meaning tea. So it's CHOCOlat rather than chocolate. Gotcha. All that sort of stuff. But tea has been, we had a couple of Taiwanese entries, as I recall, over the last couple of years, and every single one of them had like tea in some form in doing it. And I know that Sweets Escalier has done it, and the bar that won best overall from Embers from Tandy, right, was her Genmai Cha bar. Kesho did again. It's a huge category. Kesho, it's been a huge category, and you just really love that. I picked this one out, Dustin, because I know it's something that you do, which is a bar with bourbon in it. So bourbon.
I see it.
Yep, there we go. The company is called Cava Roasters. So this is another coffee roaster, and they're using Dominican Monte Plata cocoa aged in Kentucky. I don't think the cocoa was aged in Kentucky, but it was aged on bourbon in Kentucky. Have you tasted this? How many bars have you tasted? Of the entries this year, how many have you tasted in the past?
Oh, from the past?
Or this, how many have you tasted before this year's competition?
So I've had this bar at our Midwest Festival. And
I picked that one as well.
Then I've had a bar from Fjorden at the festival as well. And I think that's it. And there's some of these
Fjorden's rum raisin bar, is I correct?
And I don't think I've had his rum raisin. It was the milk chocolate one.
Okay.
He entered that I've had it before. A lot of some of these makers I've never heard of, and some of them I have heard of. Like I've heard of this one, but I've never had their chocolate before. So I'm curious about a lot of it. And then I did pick out this one because I liked the Lavender London Fog. Just sounds really interesting. And yeah,
gotcha.
So that's But I could grab any of them out of here. There's just a lot of interesting chocolate. It's one of the spoils. I never really anticipated this part when I created it. Of like, whoa, this is kind of like Christmas. You get all this, but then you start to do the feedback and the work, and it's a lot. And I was going to start last night, but the time change has just messed me up. So I was too tired. I was like, I can't do it. So I will plan to start mine tonight. I know some judges have already started.
Right.
I wasn't able to send one box to the judges yet because we had this little bit of a heat wave that happened. So I have to send some more tomorrow, and everybody will be on their way, and be fun.
But just listen, I haven't. I all I've done is an inventory to said I have all the bars, right? I haven't really paid attention to them. So I did a quick thumb through things yesterday. So a couple of things. Number one is I think the overall feel of the packaging was one of the things that jumped out that with this Cacao Works, which is in Saskatchewan in Canada, but they also have this Saskatoon berry pie. So I spent a number of years in Washington State and in Oregon and love the local like Logan berries. So this kind of berry is a real flavor of mine. And then this is part of something they call their Canadiana series. And so leaning into a particular theme, right, which provides a unified structure for a series of flavors, I think. So James is saying Alberta. Okay, James, thank you very much, Alberta. Anyway.
It says it right at the top, right there at the top, right?
Yeah, and it's also got sorghum flour in it, which I think is, I'm just really, really intrigued by the notion of that. And then, Elber Pineda, who is the founder of Yohoa, he's from Honduras. There is a homestay program at the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival, and Elmer, not in year one, was one of the housemates. It was just staying in a historic house. And I've known Elmer Fritz's forever. And I got to admit, I tried this one. It's there's an avocado which grows in Honduras, which is anise flavored, anise, licorice, fennel flavored, which is just like wild. The fact that there's an avocado which has the flavor. So Elmer goes in, he freeze dries the avocado and refines it into the product.
Yeah, and he said they grow wild, so he has to. He goes and hunts for them, So, judging is a real challenge. Absolutely, it's a real challenge. But there are lots of rewards of doing it, which is one of the reasons why I'm hoping that people will become unofficial judges and have an opportunity to taste some of the things that are available through the challenge this year. And now, like a quick note before we sort of end up today, is a quick shout out back from Mike King. The challenge has been a great experience. It provided me good feedback, which helped me improve my product
The networking with other makers has been great as well. And I know that, Dustin, let's do a quick shout out for the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival, because that's one of the places where the networking among winners of the challenge has happened. So can you give us a little more feedback about that?
Yeah, so basically the challenge has a home now. So we have the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival. So it's just natural for some of these makers who have I've created a relationship with through the challenge, know about it, they can come and be part of the festival. And we kind of take the same approach. It's not about really a business forward approach. It's more of education and helping chocolate makers and being able to educate the public on why it's important. And we're doing it in farm country. So it's really interesting to take that perspective as well, about, the agricultural part of all of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just kinda works.
Yeah, it's great to be at a festival where you don't need to explain farming to people, because these people live in farm country and many of them are farmers or from farming families. It is a really wonderful point. Now, as we end today, first thing I want to say is that, as Dustin mentioned, the Craft Chocolate Challenge does not charge entry fees and relies on sponsorships and other kinds of sources of income, and anything else comes out of Dustin's pocket, right? So if you would like to support the Craft Chocolate Challenge in any way, there is a GoFundMe. And the link to the GoFundMe is on the post for today's episode. So here's the post for today's episode. You can scroll down and you can click on the link for the GoFundMe if you'd like to support what they're doing. The challenge, if you'd like to support the challenge in general. You can also support the challenge by purchasing the bars that have been entered into the challenge, and that supports the challenge and the makers, and rating and reviewing them over on Beanstalker. There's also a link to the Beanstalker website, which is down here. Unfortunately, they don't provide an image as a part of it, but you can go click and you can learn more about Beanstalker here, including registering. If you're a craft chocolate maker or you have a business, you sell chocolate, you can register as a business and you can be part of the global directory of businesses that are a part of it. You can go and take a look at the bars that have been reviewed in the past. It's a great resource. And one of the things that I really appreciate is that Steph, who runs this, again, is also open in terms of making improvements that make the overall user experience a whole lot better for everybody. And before we leave, I'm going to do a quick shout out about, hey, the Chocolate Life, because this episode of Pod Safe Chocolate, like every episode, is sponsored by the members of the Chocolate Life. If you're not a member, you can go to the Chocolate Life, right? And you can click on, here's the homepage right now. You can click on the join button, right? There's always a free membership. Whoops, you can't see it. So let me make ourselves smaller. There's always a free membership, has been since 2008 when I spun up the Chocolate Life. But if you do have the resources, memberships start at as little as $5 a month. And if you're in a business and you'd like consulting, if you're an annual member, that the upper levels from the leader level and above come with consulting hours. So if you want some help in your business, I can provide you with that help. And with that, Dustin, we're just about done. Is there a last minute thing you'd like to say to everybody before we leave?
You've kind of brought up the GoFundMe. Like, we're at a point now with the challenge of making decisions for the future ones. So I was at this point, maybe I think it was season 2, that it's easier to purchase kind of the awards, like this guy is an award. It's easier to purchase these things in bulk, and be not like bulk, but like several years at a time. It just works out much better financially that way to do so. So I have to kind of commit. So I want to make a commitment to X amount of years, and I probably want to commit to maybe 20, 30 or something like that this time. And then I can do the same with the website, kind of get all that stuff set up. So that's kind of one reason to start the GoFundMe. Before I would try to find some sponsors and different things like that. But now with the Midwest Festival, I'm asking for sponsorships for the festival and things. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go back around and ask these same people. So I'm hoping the festival will kind of work with the challenge, and then I can be able to get some help to get what I need to keep it sustainable and keep it going, because I want to keep it free and I want to keep it how it's going. I have a lot of other innovative ideas that I want to add to the
Ooh,
challenge next year too. I won't get into that now because I want to keep the focus on this
gotcha.
year. But maybe during the award show, maybe I'll talk about, or maybe in the leading up to the next one. But I have some pretty cool ideas, and I want to move forward with some of that. So that's kind of at the inflection point, or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
for right now, and the reason of doing some of those things. So, but I think this is valuable and it needs to continue. So,
I know that from speaking with people who have entered the challenge that I've spoken with at the festival, that it's very, very definitely been of value to them. And being able to follow through for that from the challenge coming to the festival, right, and having that in-person contact with people who are aware of them is hugely valuable. And I didn't put it in the post for today, but I'll put a link to the new Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival website, where if you're interested in attending, exhibiting, or being a sponsor, you can go and click on a link and let us know. I'm involved in that. I'm involved in that effort this year more deeply than I have in past years, because I personally believe that diversity is really important. So it's diversity of chocolate makers, diversity of competitions, diversity of festivals, all of them reaching different audiences for different purposes is important. And that especially having smaller regional festivals is also incredibly important for the growth of the world of craft chocolate. And with that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say
no,
other
November
than
6th, November 6th, November 7th. That's
right.
the dates for the
That's the
festival.
Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival in the town of Rushville, Indiana.
Yeah.
If you do want to get a hotel for that weekend, register now, because there aren't a whole lot of places to stay in Rushville,
It
although
was
there are some
named
here.
the friendliest town in Indiana recently. So there you go.
And having been there twice, I can tell you, listen, I mean, people say, why Rushville, right? I asked that question, why Rushville? And of course, the answer is why not Rushville, right? Is that it's a group of people who've come together. I mean, the whole story about economic development and why the venue for the festival, the Love Community Center, why it exists in the first place is just a real testament to small town farming community getting together and taking care of their own, which is really, really quite inspiring. And the community coming together to invite makers from around the world into their homes, right? To become a part of to reduce the economic burden of traveling so far. But it also makes all these people invested in the success of the festival. And that doesn't happen in New York City. That doesn't happen in Seattle. That hasn't happened. It doesn't happen in Paris and places like that. And so there's a lot that makes this festival unique. And I know, just even though Maverick Chocolate has never entered the challenge, they're just down the road, more or less, in Cincinnati. And so I know that last year they invited anybody who wanted to come down on the Sunday after the festival and take a tour of their new factory. And so that's really, really cool. And last year we started a program where if you're an exhibitor and you want one-on-one consulting, just a half hour of just like ask questions of people, there were separate. It really is, you know, this, it really is this confluence of two very, very different but complementary, right, programs to grow specialty chocolate, craft chocolate, whatever you want to call it, that I think make the festival. And it's a tribute, Dustin, to you had no idea that you were going to do this when you started this 5 years ago, but but it is you're growing something special, and that's what it is that I want to say based on everything, all the places that I've been, all the festivals that I've attended all over the world. There is something special about traveling to Rushville, Indiana, and among other things, being able to see makers who I get to know their work from the challenge. And for me, those connections are what I truly value about all the work that I've been doing over the past 25 years. And I just want to thank you for including me as a part of the things that you're doing. It's really special to me.
I'm glad I didn't run away from those first comments.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't. And with that, everybody, I want to say thank you for joining me. This coming Friday, which is the 13th of March, I'm going to be talking about warm weather shipping, and maybe the 13th and what can happen.
Friday the 13th. Ooh.
Yeah, I know, warm weather shipping. But also, I discovered a new product. I went to my local farmer's market and I saw a new product which could make it easier if you're displaying chocolates at a farmer's market. And so I'm going to be talking about that, as well as what you can do to make sure that when you're shipping, you can have a higher shipping when it's warm. If you ship when it's warm, you've got a greater chance of your product arriving intact. And with that, everybody, I want to say thank you very much and remind everyone, as I do at the end of every episode, if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Dustin, thank you very much. Ciao to everyone. Until the next time.